Hi, welcome to our CWTC Get Connected community podcast to share experiences, promote services and networking, and great opportunities available for residents of Oldham. Domestic violence affects 1 in 3 women and 1 in 10 men, but often remains hidden in silence and stigma. We must raise awareness of domestic violence to protect victims, break the cycle of abuse, and create a society where everyone feels safe and supported. To enlighten us more, we have invited to our CWTC podcast studio Charlotte Woodward from the National Centre for Domestic Violence. Charlotte, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you.
And I believe you've travelled from Stourbridge near Birmingham.
That's right.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you in Oldham.
You're welcome.
Welcome. And Charlotte, tell us about yourself, your education, your career.
Okay, so I have worked in the domestic abuse sector for 30 years now, so I'm a bit of a veteran in the field.
Lots of experience.
I started on the front line working in women's refuges, and sort of made my way up into management and then senior management, and I now hold a strategic role within the National Centre for Domestic Violence.
Wow.
Alongside that, I am a counsellor.
Okay.
And I have completed the Masters in Domestic and Sexual Violence, and I am about to begin my PhD in the same subject. So, yes, I must be a sucker for punishment. I'm really looking forward to that, and that will be on how we support survivors in the workplace. Yeah,
tremendous commitment and the continuous development and experience that you are gaining to support people.
It's once you begin in this sector, it creates a passion.
Yes.
I'm a survivor myself, so that sort of drives me forward to wanting to make the world a better place.
Yes. Well, it is usually the case, people who are expert by experience.
Yes.
It helps to realise and, put yourself in other people's shoes, really, in a way.
Absolutely. Yeah. About 50% of women we know that work in this sector are survivors themselves. You don't have to be a survivor to make a brilliant advocate, but you do bring something unique.
Absolutely. And it's helping that prevention, isn't it?
Yes.
Or the intervention that we need. The centre that you mentioned, National Centre for Domestic Violence, give us a bit more background on it.
So we've been around for about 20 years now, and we cover the whole of England, and we've recently begun working in North Wales and really hope to sort of work down the country and cover the whole of Wales in due course. We are a service that helps people obtain protection orders through the courts. So known to some as an injunction. To help stop abuse, harassment and intimidation by another party.
You're doing a great, fantastic work, and I'm sure we'll be learning much more about it throughout the interview. Domestic abuse, I know it's not just about physical injury, is it? It's a lot more than that in terms of behaviours which fall under the domestic violence, etc., etc. Can you enlighten us a bit more, please?
Yes, you may have noticed that we've sort of moved away from the term domestic violence when we talk more about domestic abuse and coercive control now. And that is because too many victims believed that they couldn't come forward for help because they hadn't been hit or hurt. But of course you can effectively control a person's life and never lay a finger on them through fear and intimidation. So that was the message that we been trying to put out there when we changed our language. And then in 2015 coercive control was made a criminal offence in its own right, which sent a really clear message that yes, of course people are physically hurt, but you don't have to be a victim.
There's the emotional abuse as well.
Emotional and psychological abuse, it has huge impacts for people. And lots of people, men and women, have told me over the years that cuts and bruises do heal. but those emotional scars run very difficult deep and often don't heal and change you as a person.
Yeah. Can you give us a bit more examples of these abuses?
So constant criticism and verbal abuse, aggressive behaviour. So you don't have to hurt someone, but if somebody is slamming doors and kicking walls, that the message they're giving you is I'm out of control and you could be next, and that's terrifying for someone. And then you've got the whole sort of emotional blackmail, or if you leave, if you tell anyone what's happening, I'll kill myself, or I'll take the children and you'll never see them again. The constant threats, monitoring somebody's movements, where are you going, why are you late, who have you been talking to, that real extreme jealousy and possessiveness, and just behaviours that are designed to make somebody feel isolated and scared and alone.
Yeah, and I believe this is quite vast in many ways, and every situation is different. And there's other people that could be involved within the relationships that can accuse or that can use this situation. For example, gaslighting between each other's, telling fibs. There's so much that goes around in a relationship, which can affect the whole situation as a whole.
Absolutely, and look, nobody's relationship is absolutely perfect.
Sure.
We all behave in ways that we look back on and think we could have done better.
Absolutely.
But it's when it tips over into abuse, and I think that can be hard to recognise sometimes, because what is poor behaviour and what is abuse. But if your life feels that you have no control over it, and you are scared and sad and depressed, and you feel that you have no freedom, that's abuse.
Of course. And you mentioned about stigma earlier on. There is underreporting, as we all know, because of fear, and there is a stigma as well.
It is probably the most underreported crime. Sexual and domestic abuse are hugely underreported because it is so scary. First of all, you've got the risk of repercussions because you've told somebody what's happening. And secondly, will you be believed? Because, how people behave behind closed doors is not necessarily how they behave out there in the public world. These could be people who are well liked and respected, pillars of the community perhaps.
There's a false image, isn't it?
Absolutely. So there's the feeling that you won't be believed. And then if you do report, you've got other agencies involved then, like the police, possibly the fear of social services being involved, and that brings stigma. Just having a police car pull up outside of your house, your neighbours are going to know.
And there's, of course, sometimes children involved. And you have to be a bit more understanding about this situation, what is going on. Lead to, and how it will affect the children that you have.
Absolutely. And there's often a tension when there's a victim in the house. If I stay, I'm exposing my children to abuse, but if I leave, I'm rendering them homeless and taking them away from their other parent. But children do not do well in violent households.
It's not very pleasant at all. No. In terms of the domestic abuse, as you've said, it is very high on the list. And I mentioned earlier about, the statistics around it. Can you tell us a bit more?
The statistics are quite scary. The National Police Chiefs Council came out earlier this year and called violence against women a national emergency, which are words reserved for war and pandemics. The World Health Organization call it a global cause for concern and a leading cause of early death. However, we mustn't forget that men experience domestic abuse too. Now, at the moment, it is the 16 days of activism around violence against women, and they are taking the centre stage, and that's fine. But we mustn't forget that lots of men experience physical and emotional abuse, and actually coming forward for them there's their own barriers.
Would you feel, being on the men's side, would you feel that that there's underreporting more on the men's side because they would feel...
Absolutely. It goes against our very perceived notion of masculinity. So are they going to be believed? Are they going to face ridicule and shame? And I think we are just about scratching the tip of the iceberg for male victims. So human relationships are complex, and we're not doing very well in a lot of areas.
Okay, thank you for that. So in terms of people who are experiencing domestic abuse, I mean, it could be any age, for example,
it could
anybody.
Be. And I think I would be remiss in not saying that that women experience by far the most deaths, serious assaults, hospitalisations, acid attacks. We know those numbers, they are there, we can't argue with them. So therefore we have to pay attention to that.
Of course.
And the numbers are scary, as I said. 2 women every week are killed by a current or former partner in this country. But we also need to remember that 12 men a year approximately also are killed and lose their lives too. Yes.
In terms of the impact it has on children, people undermine when they have domestic abuse within the family. What can you say about that?
I used to manage women's refuges, and there was nothing sadder than going out in the middle of the night and admitting a family, and you'd have 2 or 3 children, each carrying a bin bag with a few belongings in, not knowing what was happening. And if you think about what they've lost their home, their extended family, their parents, their school, their friends, their bedroom, their toys, their pets. It's
they assimilate lots of things.
Absolutely.
And they have a lot more on their memory than what we think.
Absolutely. And we think that we can protect children by carrying our arguments and other things in another room or when they're at school. But children are brilliant at picking up tension. They know their parents' moods, even our heartbeats. So they pick up on stress and tension, and that affects. We know now categorically that it affects the development of children's brains living in a household where there is abuse.
It affects their school. It affects their relationship with friends, the stigma around it, and as they grow up, they begin to feel the impact of that separation, and how to balance things can psychologically be very difficult.
And if the parents stay together and that abuse continues, they normalise that and carry that into their own relationship, either as a perpetrator or a victim, because it's normal behaviour, and that is how you deal with conflict in a household, because why wouldn't they believe that? That's what parents have modelled to them. So it's very difficult for children, lots of mental health as a result.
Absolutely. What we will do also is put your name and your contact details on the video, and so people can actually take that and contact you. Okay, well, I hope you've learnt a lot from Charlotte here, and please do get in touch with the centre and take the benefit of a great service that will help you and support you as a family. And don't forget to engage with our website as well. There's plenty of opportunities for you to come and enjoy, and hope to see you next time. Thank you very much. God bless.